I should have known she would find a way to make the weekend about her. Even at a family reunion meant to celebrate love, togetherness, and forgiveness, my sister, Vanessa, showed up with the emotional grace of a wrecking ball and the subtlety of a fire alarm. It was supposed to be our first big family reunion since the pandemic. People flew in from 3 different states. Kids running around with cousins they barely knew. Grandparents crying during prayer circles. And me. I showed up smiling, dressed well, with a bottle of wine and my son Lucas clinging to my hand. I thought we were here to connect, to heal, to rebuild old bridges. I should have known better. Vanessa had always been the spotlight chaser, the kind of person who believed attention was her birthright. In high school, she was prom queen. In college, the sorority president. She never let anyone forget her accomplishments, her assets, or her ambitions. But the one thing Vanessa couldn't stand, me doing better than her. Even when I didn't brag, even when I kept my wins private, even when I was hurting. Just trying to stay afloat, she'd find a way to twist the knife. And that Saturday afternoon, she went for the kill. We were halfway through lunch. Barbecue smoke curled through the air. Laughter was flowing. Someone had started passing around old family photos. Then Uncle Greg clinked a glass and jokingly said, "Vanessa, you're always in the know. Any big news this weekend?" I looked up from my plate. I should have known by the glint in her eye. That fake smile. That soft laugh she did when she was about to turn sweet into poison. She stood up slowly, holding her wine glass like she was about to give a wedding toast. "Oh, you know me," she said with a grin. "Always something going on." Then she turned toward me. "And speaking of news, I just think it's so brave that my sister is here today. Considering, well, everything." I froze. People glanced my way, confused, smiling, unsure. Vanessa continued, "She didn't tell you guys? She's going through bankruptcy." The air was sucked from the backyard. Someone dropped a fork. She laughed again, like it was a quirky little tidbit. "Yeah, can you believe it? Life comes at you fast." "Right. But hey, she's always been a survivor." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at her, heart pounding, mouth dry. She had just publicly announced the most private struggle of my life, something I hadn't even told my son yet. And she did it in front of 30 people. Let me pause here and ask, have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone you trusted? If so, please like this video, comment with your story, and subscribe for more real, emotional revenge stories. You are not alone. Back to that moment. I wanted to scream, cry, run, but I didn't. Instead, I stood up calmly, wiped my hands with a napkin, and said, "Excuse me for a moment." Then I walked inside the house and locked the guest bathroom door. And there, behind that old wooden door with faded wallpaper, I let my chest collapse in sobs. I wasn't even bankrupt yet. Not officially. I was in talks with lawyers, just exploring options. But Vanessa had caught wind of it, and in true Vanessa fashion, weaponized it before I could even breathe. She wanted people to pity me, or worse, judge me. But what she didn't know, that very morning, before the reunion, before the humiliation, I signed the deed to a house. Not just any house, her dream vacation home. The one she had been dreaming about for years. The white one by the lake. 2 stories, wraparound porch, massive kitchen. She had posted about it on Instagram with hashtags like #futuregoals and #manifesting. She never imagined I'd be the one to buy it, but I did. In full. Cash. With her name, nowhere near the paperwork. And that was going to be the beginning of my revenge. I stayed in that bathroom for nearly 15 minutes. Long enough for my tears to dry. Long enough to remember who I was. Not the broke, humiliated sister Vanessa painted me as. Not the weak one she used to poke fun at during holidays. Not the one she could step over on her climb to perfection. No, I was the woman who had just bought her dream home before breakfast. And she had no idea, when I finally emerged, I walked back into the backyard with my chin high and my face unreadable. Some of the relatives looked at me with sympathy, others with confusion. Vanessa was in the middle of telling a story about a yacht trip she almost took, laughing loudly as if nothing had happened. She didn't even notice I had returned. But I noticed everything. I watched how people shifted around her, how some looked uncomfortable now, how a few cousins shot me an apologetic glance. But I didn't speak. Not yet, because the sweetest revenge takes patience. I left the reunion an hour later, claiming Jacob was tired. Truthfully, I just couldn't sit there and pretend anymore. Not while my character was being ripped apart by someone who had no idea the empire I'd quietly built behind the scenes. But on the drive home, I smiled, because I knew something she didn't. I knew what I was about to do. Let me tell you how the house came into play. 3 months earlier, I had gotten an unexpected payout from a tech company I used to consult for. Stock options I'd forgotten about matured at just the right time. $1.6 million landed in my account overnight. And I didn't tell a soul. Not even Jacob. I just started planning. I paid off all my debt, moved everything into clean accounts, got a financial advisor. And then, on a rainy Saturday morning, I remembered that Vanessa had once bragged to the family about a dream vacation home she wanted by Lake Haven. She'd shown pictures of it on her phone, standing proudly in front of everyone like it was already hers. "This will be mine one day," she said. "That porch was made for me." She grinned. I remembered it well. So I searched it, and there it was, still on the market, price reduced, still untouched. I called a realtor, scheduled a private viewing, and didn't even haggle. Paid full price, cash, and closed in 2 weeks, all in my name. No mortgage, no co-signers, no trace of Vanessa. That morning, the keys were delivered, and hours later, she stood in our family's backyard and announced to everyone that I was broke. She was about to find out just how broke I really was, but not through words. I didn't need to brag. I didn't need to defend. I just needed one perfect moment to deliver the truth. And trust me, I was going to make sure she never forgot it. If someone has ever tried to define your worth in front of others without knowing the full story, you know how painful that is. Like and subscribe if you've ever been underestimated and came back stronger than ever. That Monday, I drove out to the lake house, alone. No one knew. The air was crisp, the sky wide and cloudless. I unlocked the door and stepped into what was now mine. Polished wood floors, tall ceilings, white cabinets Vanessa had drooled over, French doors opening onto a massive porch that overlooked the water. I stood there for a moment, imagining her face, her disbelief, her rage, her realization that the one person she ridiculed was now living her fantasy. I decided to decorate the place, but not for myself. No, I had other plans. I hired a local design team, gave them every Pinterest photo Vanessa had ever posted about lake home dreams. They had no idea the client wasn't her. I made sure every little detail she loved was replicated. Same rug pattern, same art style, same porch swing. I even had a custom mug made that read, "Living the Dream," placed right on the kitchen counter. Once it was done, I brought in a photographer, not to list it, but to frame it. Next, I sent out a family group message. Simple, elegant. "Hi everyone. I'd love to invite you to a quiet family brunch this Saturday at a new home I recently acquired. Address attached. No pressure. Just some food, some laughs, and a fresh start." I knew they'd come, and I knew Vanessa couldn't resist. Because if there's one thing she hated more than being ignored, it was being left out. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Warm sun, gentle breeze off the lake, birds chirping in the tall trees that framed the white paneled home now under my name. Everything looked like a dream. Her dream. And that was exactly the point. I set the table on the back porch with care. Fresh flowers in glass jars, a basket of croissants and fruit. I even ordered those fancy custom juices with labels that said things like, "Welcome home," and "Good vibes only." I wanted this to look casual, soft, unthreatening, because sometimes revenge doesn't scream. It smiles and waits. The guests started arriving around 10 a.m. Uncle Greg, Aunt Melanie, my cousin Elise with her twin toddlers, each one walking through the front door with wide eyes and open mouths. Wow! One of them whispered, "This place is incredible." They didn't ask how I got it, didn't ask why I bought it, but I could see the questions dancing in their eyes. And I just smiled and poured mimosas. By 10:45, most of the invited guests were seated on the back porch, everyone chatting, eating, laughing. Then, her car pulled up, a black SUV, shiny and dramatic like she always liked to be. Vanessa stepped out in a summer dress and heels, holding a gift bag. I almost laughed. She thought she was coming to support me, to bless me with her presence. She had no clue. She walked up the stone path with confidence, peering at the house like she was appraising it for herself. When she got to the front porch, she paused. Her eyes narrowed. Something was familiar, but her brain hadn't caught up yet. I met her at the door. Calm, composed. "Vanessa," I said warmly. "Glad you could make it." She stepped inside and froze. Her mouth parted slightly. She looked around the living room like she had entered a lucid dream. "These cabinets," she whispered. Her hand brushed across the marble counter. "The white finish, the backsplash." Then she turned sharply. "This is," I nodded. "Yours." "Right." She blinked. I mean. It looks exactly like the house I showed everyone." I handed her a glass of juice labeled "Living the Dream" and said, "I know. I remembered how much you loved it." She took the glass but didn't sip. She was spinning, trying to figure out the joke. Who was the owner? Who was I working with? Who bought it for me? I led her through the dining room, out to the back patio where the family was gathered. All eyes turned to her, and in that moment, she smiled tightly and sat down, still pretending, still not willing to admit the truth forming in her throat. Finally, she asked, "So who owns this?" I turned toward her slowly, looked her dead in the eyes, and said with perfect calm, "I do." Silence. Utter silence. Then someone dropped a fork. Aunt Melanie coughed into her drink. "And Vanessa?" She laughed. A loud, shrill, uncomfortable sound. "Wait, you do." I nodded. "Closed on it last Saturday morning. All cash. Walked through every room. Felt like the kind of place someone strong would live in." I leaned closer. Someone who doesn't let her sister define her in front of 30 people. Her smile faltered. Her mouth opened again, but nothing came out. She was crumbling. Right there. In front of everyone. I stood up and raised my glass. "I just want to thank everyone for coming. And for those who supported me during the last few difficult months, you've reminded me of what real family looks like. This home is a new start." I paused. "And a reminder that no matter what people say about you, only you get to write your ending." The family clapped. Soft at first, then louder. I caught eyes with Elise, who mouthed, "She deserves this." Vanessa sat frozen. No more snide remarks. No fake speeches. She'd lost her audience. And she knew it. To you watching this, have you ever turned someone's cruelty into your strength? If you have, like and subscribe. You deserve to be celebrated. Now back to the story. After the brunch, most of the family lingered. They asked to see the guest rooms, toured the dock, complimented the decor. Vanessa, she left in silence, didn't say goodbye, didn't leave the gift bag, didn't look me in the eye again. She didn't have to. I'd already said everything without uttering a single cruel word. My success did the talking for me, and her silence was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. 2 days passed after the brunch. 2 whole days of absolute silence from Vanessa. No dramatic Instagram posts. No passive-aggressive group messages. No mysterious quotes about betrayal or fake people. Just quiet. But that silence, it wasn't peace. It was pressure. And I knew exactly how it would break her. On Tuesday morning, I opened my email and found something unexpected. A message from a shared acquaintance we both knew from high school. Lena. We hadn't spoken in years. Her subject line, "Thought you should see this." I clicked it open. Inside was a screenshot from Vanessa's private Instagram account, one I hadn't been following. It was a story post. Black background. White text. "Can't believe people still think money buys class. Some of us have real taste, not knockoffs built from spite." It wasn't even subtle. My stomach twisted, not because it hurt, but because it was so predictable. She couldn't take the loss, couldn't let me have the win, couldn't let go of the fact that I had moved on, leveled up, and never looked back. But it didn't stop there. Lena had also sent me a screen recording. It was a voice message Vanessa had sent to someone else, one that somehow ended up in Lena's DMs. In it, Vanessa said, "She's so fake. That house should have been mine. I showed it to her. She stole it. She knew it was my dream. She just wanted to humiliate me in front of the family. I'm going to ruin her. She thinks this is over. But it's not." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. There it was. Proof that she had never changed. Proof that she was already planning another attack. Proof that, in her mind, she was the victim, even after everything. But instead of fear, I felt fire, not rage, just the burn of truth. Because you can only be betrayed so many times before you stop expecting different from the same people. I sat back in my chair and thought carefully. She was playing games again, trying to control the narrative. But this time, I had a decision to make. Do I go low? Expose her messages? Let the family hear her venom firsthand? No. Too easy. Too reactive. Instead, I wrote her a message. A single, private one. Not to fight, not to beg, but to end the story. On my terms. "Vanessa, I saw your post. And the voice message. I'm not angry. Just disappointed. I truly hoped you'd take this moment to grow. To realize that your sister never needed to steal your dream because you never worked for it. You used attention like currency and believed it would buy you a future. I used silence like strategy, and it gave me freedom. This isn't revenge. It's reality. You exposed me when I was at my most vulnerable, and I still chose not to destroy you publicly. That was a gift. Don't mistake it for weakness again. I wish you peace, but I won't be part of your story anymore." I hit send, and felt the weight of 10 years lift from my chest. I blocked her right after. Phone. Email, social media, everything. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I found a note slid under my apartment door. No envelope, just folded once. In her handwriting, it read, "You win. But just so you know, I always knew you were capable of this. I just never thought you'd choose to be like me." I read it, sat with it, and then laughed. Because that was the most Vanessa thing she could have said. Still trying to turn it around. Still trying to pretend I had become her. But she was wrong. I didn't win by becoming her. I won by outgrowing her. To those watching, if someone ever tried to drag you down for rising above, don't forget who you are. Your success doesn't have to scream. Let your peace be your power. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you've ever had to cut off a toxic sibling just to breathe again. 2 weeks passed. I didn't mention Vanessa's post or her note to anyone in the family. Not out of fear, but because I didn't have to. Truth has a way of surfacing on its own. And when someone is loud with lies long enough, people eventually stop listening. It started slowly. Aunt Melanie called one afternoon while I was cleaning up after lunch. Her tone was careful, but curious. "I've been meaning to ask." She said, "How long have you had that lake house?" Closed on at the week of the reunion. I answered, "You didn't say a word." I smiled. I didn't need to. She was quiet for a moment, then said something I'll never forget. "We always assumed Vanessa would be the one to make it. She always told us she would." And there it was, the quiet realization in her voice, that all these years, while Vanessa was talking, I was building. Word spread, not because I shouted, but because others whispered. Elise told Melanie, Melanie told Uncle Greg. Greg mentioned it at another family dinner. And just like that, the narrative began to unravel. People remembered the way Vanessa had humiliated me. They started questioning the why behind it. They started replaying old moments, noticing patterns, the favoritism, the entitlement, the spotlight she clung to, and the silence she demanded from me. Only now, the silence was mine, but it was powerful. At the next family gathering, a cousin's baby shower, I walked in expecting to feel awkward. But instead, something had shifted. People greeted me differently. With softness, with respect. Uncle Greg hugged me. Not the side pat kind. A full, long hug. "You're a force," he whispered. "We all see it now." Aunt Melanie handed me a cup of tea and sat beside me like we were old friends. "I'm sorry we didn't notice sooner," she said gently. "You've always been the backbone." I nodded. "It's okay. I wasn't ready to be seen until now." She smiled. "Well, we see you now." Vanessa didn't come to the shower. No one mentioned her. No one asked where she was. And I didn't bring her up, because the story had turned. And not in a dramatic, headline way, but in the slow, quiet way truth always wins. That night, I stood alone on the porch of my lake house, wind brushing past my cheeks. Jacob was inside, asleep on the couch after a long day in the sun. I looked out at the water and thought about everything that had happened. The public humiliation, the whispers, the betrayal, and the moment I decided I would never let anyone else write my story again. Vanessa thought she owned the narrative, but what she didn't understand was this. When someone tries to shame you publicly, and you respond with grace and power, they lose control. And once control slips from their hands, they scramble. They twist. They spiral. But the truth? It just keeps standing. I went inside, sat beside Jacob, and ran my fingers through his hair as he slept. This house was no longer about revenge. It was about restoration. A symbol that I didn't just survive my sister's cruelty, I transcended it. It was a quiet Friday morning when the last piece of the story found its place. Jacob had gone off to school, and I sat at the lake house sipping my coffee, watching the mist rise off the water. Everything felt still, peaceful, and yet something lingered inside me. A thread that hadn't been tied off. Not bitterness, not anger, just a single, hanging thread that still had her name on it. Vanessa. I hadn't heard from her since that note under my door. And even though I had blocked her everywhere, a part of me wondered, was she done? Was it finally over? Or was she simply waiting, scheming, preparing her next storm? And then, as if summoned by thought, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. "Hello." Silence. Then her voice. Low. Flat. "Hi." My heart didn't jump. My hands didn't shake. Because I wasn't the woman she hurt anymore. I was the woman who rebuilt herself on the land she dreamed of owning. So I waited. Let her speak first. "I'm not calling to fight," she said. "Good." I replied. "I'm calling because I don't know who I am anymore." She admitted. The honesty in her voice was rare. Raw. Startling. She continued. "I spent so long trying to be the one everyone looked at, admired, envied, and now they don't even ask about me." She paused. "You've taken everything I wanted." I didn't respond. Because what do you say to someone who tried to destroy you and finally realizes they only destroyed themselves? "I just wanted you to know," she added, "that I get it now. I was cruel. I was jealous. And I was wrong." She let those words hang. But they didn't land the way she thought they would. Because the truth was, I didn't need her apology anymore. I had already healed. And that was the real victory. Still, I gave her the only words I had left. "I forgive you." She exhaled. Maybe from shock. Maybe from relief. "Thank you." Then she said, "Do you think one day we'll be sisters again?" I looked out at the lake, watched the sunlight scatter over the water like broken gold. And I spoke with nothing but truth. "I think we'll always be sisters by blood. But for now, I need to be my own peace. She didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't lash out. She just said, I understand. And then she hung up. No goodbye. No promises. Just an ending. Soft. Final. Real. Later that evening, I took a walk along the shoreline. The wind tugged gently at my sleeves. The sky faded into lavender above the trees. And I breathed, not just because I could, but because I had earned it. Every tear, every sacrifice, every quiet moment of holding back while someone else took the spotlight, it had led to this. Peace. Not because I got even, but because I chose to rise, because I turned pain into power, and chose myself in a world that begged me to shrink. Vanessa had her own story to face now, her own demons, her own truth, and I had no desire to walk her path again. My path was wide open, beautiful, and finally, mine. Maybe someone humiliated you, lied about you, took your silence for weakness, but I want you to know you are not what they say you are. You are what you do next. Let your healing speak louder than their betrayal. Let your peace be your loudest answer. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after family tore you down, please like, comment, and subscribe. Then tell us below, what's the moment you knew you were finally free? We're listening. We understand. And we're with you. Always.